Once upon a time, there was a poor widow who had 2 daughters, and she called them Snow White and Rose Red, because they were just like the flowers that bloomed on 2 rose bushes that stood in front of their little cottage. Snow White and Rose Red were as good as they were beautiful, and so gentle that all the small forest animals were their friends. One wintry evening, there was a knock at the cottage door. "Open the door, Rose Red," said their mother. "Perhaps that's a traveler who needs shelter from the snow." So Rose Red opened the door, and there stood a great black bear. "Mother!" Rose Red cried out in fear. But the bear said,
"Don't be afraid. I won't harm you. I would like to come in and get warm."
"Poor bear," said the mother. "Come in and lie down by the fire. Come, Snow White and Rose Red. The bear won't hurt us." So shyly the girls came near. "How do you do, sir?" said Snow White. "May I help you with your coat?" And she took a broom and swept the snow from the bear's fur.
"You're very kind to an old bear,"
he said, and stretched out in front of the fire and went to sleep. The next night, the bear was back again, and the next, and soon he was part of the family. But at last, spring came, and one morning the bear said,
"Now I must leave. It is time to go into the woods and guard my treasure. Once the sun has warmed the earth, the dwarfs come up out of their holes and steal gold and jewels and anything else they can find."
So Snow White and Rose Red said goodbye very sadly, and the bear went away deep into the forest. One day soon afterwards, the girls were out in the woods, and they saw a tiny man with an old wrinkled face and a beard that was longer than his whole body. The tip of his beard was caught under a fallen tree, and he was hopping and jumping in a rage.
"Stop standing there staring!"
sputtered the little man.
"Do something, you scrawny, scraggly scarecrows!"
"Of course," said Rose Red politely. "We'll try to pull you free." And they tugged as hard as they could, but they couldn't get him free.
"Oh, you fumbling females!"
roared the little man.
"Can't you think of anything better?"
"Don't be impatient," said Snow White gently, and pulling her scissors out of her pocket, she snipped off the end of his beard. He grabbed a sack of gold that he had set beside the tree and marched away without one single word of thanks. Suddenly, there was a low growl, and a great black bear appeared. The dwarf was terrified.
Don't eat me, bear. I'm just a tiny, tasteless dwarf. Take these lovely little ladies instead."
But the bear gave the dwarf a single swat with his paw, and the little man sailed way over the pond and out of sight. And where he had stood lay a glittering heap of gold and jewels. The girls started to run away, but the bear called after them.
"Stop, Snow White and Rose Red. Don't be afraid."
"Why, it's our bear," said Snow White. And she ran up to him and kissed him. And the heap of jewels flowed over the bear, and the rough coat fell away, and the bear became a handsome prince.
"I've been under the spell of the wicked dwarf,"
he said.
"but you kissed me and set me free. But if you will not marry me, Snow White, I would rather be a bear again."
But Snow White did marry the prince, and Rose Red married his brother. And the mother came to live with them all. And the rose trees that had stood before the cottage now stood before the palace and forever bloomed with beautiful flowers.